Welcome to Le Weekend, your essential roundup of French news on culture, business, the economy, and current affairs. We bring you a convenient way to catch up on the stories from the past week in France, plus an additional focus feature blending reportage and cultural context. You'll find a seamless recap of the week's most important headlines without losing any content from our previous daily format, perfect for those who want to catch up in just one episode. Le Weekend is designed to keep you informed and engaged with a lighter touch at the end. Let's dive in.
These are the headlines on Monday, July 6th. France's wealthiest man, Bernard Arnault, was ordered to pay a large sum in back taxes. Arnault, who is the head of luxury goods group LVMH, has been ordered to pay nearly 22.5 million euros in back taxes after a Paris appeals court overturned earlier rulings in his favor in a long-running dispute with tax authorities, as reported by RFI. France faces a new heat wave with temperatures reaching 40 degrees centigrade, approximately 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Heat swept across much of the country on Monday, with temperatures reaching up to 38 and even 40 degrees in the southwest. The third major heat wave of the year is expected to be both intense and prolonged, likely lasting around 12 days, as reported by Le Monde. In related news, French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu survived a no-confidence vote over the response to the heat wave. The motion followed 5 days of unseasonably high temperatures in May, then a record-breaking 11-day heat wave in June, which led to school closures and cancelled festivals throughout France, as reported by Le Monde. The headlines on Tuesday, July 7th. The government is freezing 3 billion euros in credit and considers it difficult to contain the public deficit to 5% in 2026. Public Accounts Minister David Amiel said that of this amount, 2 billion euros concern the state, largely linked to the aid measures that have been deployed since last April, and 1 billion for social security, as reported by Le Figaro. Marine Le Pen announced she has decided to run for president after an appeals conviction. The far-right leader said she would appeal at France's highest court after her embezzlement conviction was upheld, but her ban on holding elected office was shortened, allowing her to stand in the 2027 election, as reported by Le Monde. French prosecutors opened a probe into Paraguay senator's racist abuse of football player Mbappé. Celeste Amarilla, a senator from Paraguay, mocked Kylian Mbappe's origins, upbringing, and appearance on platform X after his winning penalty knocked Paraguay out of the World Cup, as reported by Le Monde. The headlines on Wednesday, July 8th. On July 1st, French beauty group L'Oréal will assume the development and management of Gucci's beauty business worldwide 1 year ahead of the expected date, following the early termination of Gucci's beauty license with Coty, announced today by Kering Group, and in accordance with the terms of the alliance sealed on October 2025 between Kering and L'Oréal, L'Oréal announced the exclusive 50-year license agreement for the creation, development, and distribution of Gucci's perfume and beauty products, as reported by Boursier. The state gave its green light to the controversial EMME refinery project in the Gironde department. Despite opposition from local residents and numerous associations, the nickel and cobalt refinery project north of Bordeaux has obtained its environmental authorization, as reported by Le Figaro. France is said not to be ready to face the dangerous consequences of climate change. In its latest report, the High Council for Climate estimates that France must change scale in its adaptation to climate change, judging that its economic activities and sociocultural practices have developed or been scaled in a climate that no longer exists, as reported by France 24. The headlines on Thursday, July 9th. French power utility EDF will once again shut down nuclear reactors. 2 weeks after the latest heat wave, EDF has had to halt production at several reactors to prevent further warming of the rivers. The electricity company is planning new upgrades at Golfec on the Garonne and at Chooz on the Meuse in response to climate change, as reported by Les Echos. The competition authority ordered Meta to negotiate in good faith with press publishers. The authority determined that the parent company of Instagram and Facebook was committing serious harm to the press and exacerbating its precarious position by failing to renew neighboring rights agreements with daily and magazine publishers after January 2025, as discussions had reached an impasse, as reported by Le Figaro. France will ban advertising of fossil fuels. Advertising for petroleum products and natural gas has already almost disappeared. Now, campaigns for biomethane could also be forbidden. By the end of the year, the French government will publish a decree banning all advertising for imported fossil fuels. It confirmed on Tuesday. The measure is one of the 22 initiatives in the plan intended to boost demand for electricity and reduce France's dependence on hydrocarbons, as reported by Le Monde. The headlines on Friday, July 10th. The poverty rate in France is expected to reach its highest level ever measured. The poverty rate remains stable at 15.4% of the population in metropolitan France in 2024, the highest level ever recorded, according to National Statistics Agency ANSEE, which also reported an increase in inequality. Specifically, this means that 9.8 million people were living in monetary poverty in 2024, meaning they had monthly incomes below the poverty line set at 60% of the median income, or €1,337 for a single person, as reported by Le Figaro. In France, wildfires already burned through 7,800 hectares in just 10 days. In the Drôme region, firefighters have been battling the blaze for 10 days, and several hundred people have been evacuated as a precaution. In the Pyrénées-Orientales, however, the situation appears to be improving, as reported by France 24. The historic Bayeux tapestry arrived in Britain in high-security nighttime operation. After almost 1,000 years, the priceless medieval Bayeux tapestry is back on English soil, spirited into London's British Museum on Friday in the dead of night, after a high-tech and high-security operation where any slip-up could have spelled disaster, as reported by RFI. You are listening to Le Weekend. And now that you're all caught up with the news from the past week, it's time for our focus story, where we dive a little deeper to provide context. Today, we look at why Marine Le Pen made the news in France this week. On the morning of July 7th, Marine Le Pen walked into a Paris courtroom for what may be the most consequential few minutes of her 4-decade political career. She left smiling, saying nothing to reporters, before heading straight to her party's headquarters. Le Monde's fact-checking unit, Les Décodeurs, had spent the days before the ruling mapping out 15 years of legal entanglements that brought her to this point, a timeline that read end-to-end doubles as a biography of the National Rally's transformation from pariah movement to the single most powerful force in French politics. The appeals court's decision was, in its own way, a split verdict on that transformation. Judges upheld her conviction for embezzling European Parliament funds, but softened the penalty that mattered most politically. Instead of a 5-year ban from public office, she now faces a 45-month ineligibility sentence with 30 months suspended. And because the clock started running with the original March 2025 verdict, 15 months have already elapsed. On paper, that clears a path to the April 2027 presidential race. In practice, she'll have to get there wearing an electronic ankle tag after judges converted part of her sentence into a year of house arrest under monitoring. The case that produced the tag traces back to a European Parliament payroll system that prosecutors say Le Pen's party leaned on for more than a decade. Between 2004 and 2016, National Rally figures allegedly used funds meant for parliamentary assistance to instead pay party staff based in France, employees working for the party, not for Brussels. The Paris court that first ruled on the matter in March 2025 found that the scheme had diverted roughly 2.8 million euros in public money, convicting Le Pen alongside 24 other former members of parliament, assistants and accountants, and the party itself as a legal entity. Prosecutors' framing of Le Pen's role was pointed. They argued she didn't invent the arrangement, which her father and party co-founder Jean-Marie Le Pen had used in a more haphazard fashion, but that she systematized and professionalized it after taking over the party's leadership in 2011. The paper trail behind the case actually opens earlier than most people realize. In March 2015, then European Parliament President Martin Schulz referred National Rally members of European Parliament to the EU's Anti-Fraud Office, OLAF, after the employment of parliamentary assistants who were, in effect, working for the party, the referral that set the whole investigation in motion. Le Pen and her legal team have consistently rejected the premise, telling the appeals court that the party acted in what she called good faith and have no organized embezzlement system to speak of, casting the entire prosecution as a witch hunt. It is worth noting the practice she's accused of professionalizing wasn't unique to her party. A 2023 investigation cited by the European Centre for Law and Justice is said to have found that nearly 1 in 5 members of the European Parliament misused assistance funds between 2019 and 2022, with most allowed to quietly regularize their situations rather than face prosecution. A comparison her defenders have leaned on to argue she was singled out. The European Parliament's own lawyer in the case, Patrick Maisonneuve, has pushed back hard on that framing, telling reporters plainly that what mattered was that public money, European taxpayers' money, had been misappropriated. The original 2025 verdict landed with immediate effect, barring her from office before any appeal could even be heard, an unusual step that Le Pen denounced on French television the night of her conviction as a fateful day for our democracy. The reaction abroad was just as loud. Hungary's then Prime Minister posted his solidarity, and both Elon Musk and Kremlin officials rallied publicly to her defense, turning a French fraud case into an international flashpoint about judicial overreach versus democratic accountability. To understand why this courtroom scene in Paris this week commanded this much attention, it helps to zoom out to what the national rally has built around Le Pen over the past decade and a half, because the legal saga and the party's rise have run on parallel, intertwined tracks. The numbers tell a story of near uninterrupted growth in the National Assembly. In 2012, the party, then still called the National Front, won just 2 seats. By 2017, that had crept up to 8. Then came the inflection point. In 2022, the party jumped from 7 to 89 seats, the largest far-right bloc France's post-war parliament had seen. 2 years later, in June 2024, the party topped the European Parliament elections with 31.4% of the vote. In the snap legislative election that followed, an RN-led coalition won the first round outright and took the popular vote in the run-off too, even if France's two-round system limited it to the third largest bloc in seats. That local power strategy paid off again this spring. In France's March 2026 municipal elections, the party and its allies won 3,019 mayoral and council seats nationwide, up from just 827 in 2020, a more than threefold increase that party leaders framed as proof of a durable, ground-level implementation rather than a one-off protest vote. The headline win came in Nice, France's fifth largest city, where Éric Ciotti, the former leader of the mainstream conservative party, the Republicans, now allied with the RN, unseated a Macron-backed candidate. None of this growth has been linear, though, and it's worth resisting the temptation to read every RN result as an inexorable march. In the 2021 regional elections, pollsters had overestimated the party's support for 5 to 7 percentage points in several regions, and the RN underperformed its own polling in places like Nouvelle-Aquitaine and Normandy, finishing well behind establishment rivals. The party's trajectory has been less a steady climb than a series of jolts, sudden large gains concentrated around specific national moments: 2022's legislative surge, 2024's European vote, this year's municipal breakthrough, punctuating periods of more modest and even local performance. Running underneath all of this is a question of succession that the party has been quietly preparing for. Jordan Bardella, Le Pen's 30-year-old protégé, has served as the RN's official president since 2022 and is widely credited with helping distance the party from the more toxic legacy of its founder while broadening its appeal to younger voters. He has 2.3 million followers on TikTok alone. An Ipsos La Tribune poll from April found Bardella would draw marginally more support as a presidential candidate, 34% to Le Pen's 32%, though both dwarf every other political figure in France. He has said he would step in to run if Le Pen were legally unable to, even while publicly campaigning for her right to stand herself. That dual-track preparation captures where the RN sits today, a party that has spent 15 years fighting a legal battle over how it paid its own staff while simultaneously building the most extensive local political machine the French far right has ever assembled. Marine Le Pen announced she will run as the presidential candidate in next April's election, ankle tag and all, and regardless of whether or when she hands the baton to Bardella, the courtroom drama that has defined so much of her career now looks less like an obstacle to that machine than the backdrop it was built against.
Thank you for listening to Le Weekend, your one-stop destination for the main headlines in France. Catch our weekly roundup every weekend wherever you get your podcasts. Stay informed.